welcome you to tonight's debate, sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Lackawanna County and the University of Scranton's Center for Ethics and Excellence in Public Service. My name is Joanna Hopper, and I am the co-director of the Center for Ethics and Excellence in Public Service and will be this evening's moderator. Before we begin, I'd like to share a few words about the League of Women Voters and the Center. The Center for Ethics and Excellence in Public Service, we use the acronym CEEPS for the Center, is a nonpartisan organization at the University of Scranton that endeavors to promote the common good through programs that support the development of ethical and competent public officials and of civically knowledgeable, responsible, and engaged community members. CEEPS provides resources for students, governing officials, and community members seeking education, training, or opportunities related to public service. To find out more about CEEPS and our upcoming events, please visit the web link that can be found in this evening's program. A few words about the League of Women Voters. The League of Women Voters is also a nonpartisan organization. The League's mission is to promote political responsibility through the informed and active participation by citizens in their government. If you would like to join the League of Women Voters, membership information can be found in your program, or you can go to the League's website, also printed in your program. I would like to thank the League of Women Voters of Lackawanna County, their board and director, for their efforts toward tonight's debate. Electric City TV is taping tonight's debate. This is not a live broadcast. The tape debate will be aired on Comcast 19 local TV, so please check the ECTV schedule, which can be found in your program. The tape debate will also be available on YouTube via links from the League's website and the CEEPS website. Now, a few procedural items for the audience. We ask that you please turn off or silence your phones and other devices. We also ask that you refrain from expressions of support, opposition, approval, or disapproval throughout the event. Hold your applause until after each candidate has given their closing statement, then you may applaud. Anyone causing a disturbance will be asked to leave. Please be aware that it is our policy that no person, candidate, or political group is allowed to use or edit any media from a League or CEEPS event for campaign purposes. Any use of media requires the express written approval of both the League and CEEPS. No excerpts or sound bites may be taken from tonight's discussion or debate. This evening's debate offers an opportunity for voters to learn about the candidates running for the Pennsylvania 118th House District, so that you, the voters, can make informed choices at the polls on Tuesday, November 8th. The questions I will ask the candidates during this debate were developed by the League of Women Voters of Lackawanna County and the Center for Ethics and Excellence in Public Service. The candidates will have 2 minutes to answer each question unless I specify otherwise. The candidates have not been provided with the questions ahead of time, and both candidates will be asked to respond to the same questions. Each candidate has 3 one-minute rebuttal opportunities. After all questions have been asked and answered, each candidate will have 2 minutes to deliver a closing statement. Candidates drew lots to determine who would answer first for the first question. We will then rotate between the candidates as to who answers each question first. I will now introduce the candidates in alphabetical order. James Haddock is the Democratic candidate for the 118th Pennsylvania House District. His educational background includes Wilkes-Barre Vocational Technical School, Luzerne County Community College, and the Pennsylvania Bankers Association's Advanced School of Banking at Bucknell University. Mr. Haddock is currently the Clerk of Courts and the Prothonotary Manager in Luzerne County. In previous public service positions, Mr. Haddock served as the Mayor of Avoca and the Pittston Area School Director. In addition to his active role in community organizations, Mr. Haddock has worked in the banking industry for more than 25 years and currently owns Haddock Rentals in the Pittston area. He currently resides in Pittston Township. James May is the Republican candidate for the 118th Pennsylvania House District. He holds a bachelor's degree in secondary education from Clark Summit University, a graduate certificate in Middle Eastern Studies from Jerusalem University College, a Master's of Divinity from Baptist Bible Seminary, and he completed postgraduate study at Berkeley College of New York. Mr. May's civic experience includes serving as the Northeast Regional Public Affairs Manager for the Pennsylvania State Treasury, serving as the Northeast Community Relations Director for the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation, and his service as a combat veteran for the United States Army, in which he served as a chaplain at the rank of captain. Mr. May is also one of the founders of the NEPA Student Ministries organization. He currently resides in Ransom Township with his family. We would like to welcome both Mr. Haddock and Mr. May. If the candidates are ready, we will now move on to our first question. Based on the earlier drawing, Mr. Haddock will answer the first question first. Mr. Haddock, please share with us what you believe are the top 3 policy priorities of Pennsylvanians today that the state legislature can and should address.
Well, thank you. The first priority, I feel, is public education. We have to fund public education at the state level properly. Once we fund public education, then we could look at property tax reductions for our homeowners here in Pennsylvania. I'm a former Pittston area school director, so I know the importance of public education for our students, because our students are our future here in Northeast Pennsylvania, particularly in the 118th district. So once we fund public education properly, we could look to reduce residential property taxes. That's number 1. Number 2 is public safety. I'm the former mayor of Avoca, and as the former mayor, I've increased the number of full-time police officers in our department. I was the first mayor to put computerization into police cars. I also was the first mayor to add a blazer to the police force. Another accomplishment I did was hire our first woman patrolman. Public safety is paramount. We also must, as state representatives, fund our state police properly and support our state police in every avenue we can. The third would be to protect our rights and our freedoms. First right I would like to protect is women's choice. Second right, excuse me. Second right I would like to protect is the right to vote. The third right I would like to protect is the environment. We must have clean air, water, and land. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. May, same question.
My wife and I have had the honor of doing doors together a lot of the time, and we've knocked on almost 7,000 doors now, and she and I did about 3,500 doors over the summer together. The number 1 issue facing the voters of this district right now is the economy. Inflation, jobs, the price of gas and groceries. That is the issue that is on everybody's mind right now, because when you go to the gas station now and you see the price once again going back up over $4 a gallon, and you're a young family who's trying to figure out how you're going to put food on your table, and you have to make that choice between gas and groceries. You have to make that choice between whether you heat your home or buy food for your family. Right now, the number 1, by far and away, the number 1 issue facing the voters is inflation and the cost of everything. Taxes are too high. And that, I think, is kind of what's going to be the overarching theme here, and that is what's playing into all of the concerns that we have. So when people are looking at things like the school property tax, that ties into the fact that you already can't buy your groceries, you're paying too much for your home heating oil, and now on top of that, we're being overtaxed. So as I look at it, I see inflation as the number 1 issue. Education is an issue that we need to address as well. I actually support, Governor Shapiro has a plan out that I support. It's a modification of a school choice program in which is the Opportunity Lifeline scholarships they're giving. And so things like that I think we can look at and provide some opportunities for parents to have stronger choices in their education. So inflation, education, and then jobs, making sure that we have good sustaining jobs in the area, that our young people are not graduating from high school and leaving our area, and we see that happening all too often. So inflation, education, and jobs.
Thank you. The next question, Mr. May, you will answer first. What do you believe is the biggest threat to our democracy today, and what can the state legislature do to limit or eliminate that threat?
So I had the honor of serving, as you had mentioned, as a chaplain in the United States Army. And I served in Iraq, came back from Iraq, and I served at Walter Reed Army Medical Center for a year and a half with soldiers who have been injured. And then also had the honor of serving at Arlington National Cemetery with soldiers who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our nation. I've witnessed firsthand the sacrifice that the American soldier has made for our freedom. I believe that right now the greatest threat that we are seeing in our nation is an attack on our freedom. And quite frankly, what we're seeing is we have soldiers going all around the world who are willing to sacrifice their very life and give everything for our freedom. And yet at the same time, we have politicians in Harrisburg and Washington, D.C. who are taking that freedom away from us. And it impacts every area. When a young family can't, like I was saying before, if you can't go to the store and afford the food that you need for your family, and you can't find baby formula, and you can't afford your home heating oil, you're taking away that family's right to pursue the American dream. When we have these taxes on our businesses, where it just makes it about impossible to go out and to start a business because of all the regulations, you're taking away the freedom of that business owner to pursue his happiness, to pursue the American dream. So I believe a lot of what we're going to talk about here today, I see in the context of it falling under our government is taking away our freedoms, and most of what we're seeing right now is the economic freedom that they're taking away. You know, there's a sign when you come into Pennsylvania, it says, "Welcome to Pennsylvania, pursue your happiness." But that's at like $4 a gallon to pursue your happiness. And we're having all of these regulations and taxes and inflation that are hindering us from actually pursuing our happiness.
Mr. Haddock, same question.
Well, I made that one of my priorities in my first statement, the attack on rights. For the first time in the history of our country, the Supreme Court has rolled back rights for women. Unbelievable. In Harrisburg, there's movements, as I said in my first statement, on our voting rights. What makes America America is the right to vote and elect our officials. We should be expanding voting rights and giving people more opportunity to vote and passing legislation in Harrisburg to protect our voting rights and to protect our civil rights, from women to voting to the LGBTQ community. We must take care of people's rights. And as a legislature, part of the legislature in Harrisburg, I will do just that.
Let me snag one of my rebuttals here. I don't know who we think doesn't have the right to vote these days. I mean, I keep hearing people like Jim saying that we're trying to restore the right to vote. Typically what that means is you want to make it easier for people who may not want to vote legally. I completely, just to piggyback off what he said, I believe we need to have voter ID. You know, this whole idea that we're going to restore the rights of people to vote. Anybody in here not have the right to vote? I mean, unless you're not a citizen, everybody has the right to vote. So I'm not quite sure why you think that we don't have the right to vote, unless what you want to do is do away with some common sense voter ID laws that simply says, okay, you need to show ID if you need to vote. We need to have some regulations in place. Everybody has the right to vote, but we need to have some safeguards in place just to make sure. But everybody has the right to vote, so I'm not quite sure what you're talking about.
Next question. Would you like to?
Well, he rebutted, so I just want to, on the rules, now if I answer, is that a rebuttal on me?
Yes. Yep. So that would be your rebuttal. So your choice is to use one of your rebuttals or move on to the next question.
Well, sure, I'll use one of my rebuttals because I believe the right to vote, as I said in my first statement, and then I answered the second question, which we're rebutting right now. He says there's a law about showing ID. There is no such law. It doesn't exist, and you know that.
Right, I want one.
No, you're not supposed to answer. Yeah. He said there was a law. There isn't a law. Laws are being tried to be passed in Harrisburg to stop people and deter people from voting. And I will protect those rights. And I will expand those rights to give more opportunity to register, to vote early, and Act 77 was passed bipartisan in this legislature in Pennsylvania to mail ballot, no excuse voting, and there's movements to roll that back. So that threat to our democracy is real, and I will protect it.
Okay. Next question. Mr. Haddock, you will answer first. What is the process that you favor for redistricting state legislative districts?
The process should be a nonpartisan committee to draw the lines and redistrict. That can include citizens, advisory boards, and we could look at fairness in that to take the politics out of games being played with redistricting. I'd like to say that question comes up a lot. And people don't understand, why do we redistrict? A state representative represents about 62 to 65,000 people. And every 10 years, people move in and out of a certain area, and the demographics of that district change. So every 10 years, we go through we should go through a very fair process, nonpartisan, to draw the lines to get that correct number in the districts. We just went through that. We went to file this spring. We had to wait with a court case, and the court ruled that the process this year was very fair, and even though there was a challenge from the Republican Party, the court ruled the process was fair and equitable, and the districts did not move, and that's part of the reason why the 118th is formed, and half of the towns have changed within the 118th.
Mr. May, same question.
So first of all, to go back to the previous statement, yes, there is no law that requires voter ID, obviously, and that is why I would support such a law. So that was my point on that. On this, I've often thought, one of the concerns if we just set up a committee to tackle the whole redistricting is that then the question becomes, who decides who's on that committee? And by having that, then it becomes, okay, the people who choose the people on the committee, then they are the ones who are going to have, and there will be politics in it no matter what happens. I've always thought that it would be interesting to explore the idea of a lottery system in almost the same way that we do for juries. That, you know, we trust the people themselves when it comes to our court system, to choosing whether people go to jail, whether they get the life sentence, the death penalty. And if we can trust a lottery system where we're taking regular people and having them come and have them make these type of decisions, I think it would be really interesting for us to look at the idea of having a lottery system like that as well set up that we could have for redistricting.
So the next question deals with the pre-canvassing of mail-in and absentee ballots. Mr. May, currently Pennsylvania law does not allow for pre-canvassing of mail-in or absentee ballots, even though county election officials have requested this ability. Would you sponsor, co-sponsor, or vote for state legislation that mandates pre-canvassing of mail-in and absentee ballots? Please explain.
And let me have you define what you're meaning by the pre-canvassing, if you would.
What is your understanding?
Yeah. I mean,
not
when
sure.
you're asking the question, describe, can you just say what you mean by the pre-canvassing?
I'm not sure.
Oh, okay, that's fine. That's fine. So, all right. I just want to make sure that we were on the same page here with,
Sure.
with what we were talking
Sure.
about here. So,
Well, provide your definition. And
okay, all right. So one of the things that's happening right now is, and it sort of goes back to the discussion that we were having before with our electoral process. And we have to look and we have to ask the question, is the concern that we're having right now is the concern that voting is too difficult for us right now? Is that the primary concern? Is that where we want to err? Or is the concern that we want to make sure that our voting process is safe and secure? I believe that we can have both. But right now, I think that there's this whole push to make voting so wide open that it encourages fraud, it encourages even honest mistakes. I mean, our governor accidentally admitted in a radio interview that he had his wife drop off his ballot for him with the mail-in ballots, which is illegal. In Luzerne County, they found 7 ballots in a dumpster 2 years ago. Was that intentional fraud? Was it an accident? We don't know. Here in Lackawanna County, they had stories and actual video footage of numerous ballots being dropped into a ballot box here. And again, you look and say, okay, that may have just been an innocent mistake. Somebody came up and they were carrying them for their family. But right now, the way that we have our system open up, it provides opportunities for accidents, for mistakes, for intentionality, for fraud. And so the whole idea of pre-canvassing, if we can do it in a way that guarantees that that we're going to make sure that we keep these safe safe and secure without kind of pre-tipping the hat with things, then I would be in favor of it. But I want to make sure that we're erring on the side of safety and security in all that we do in our voting process.
Thank you. Mr. Haddock, same question.
Mr. May has run for state representative now 3 other times besides this time. I'm shocked you didn't know what pre-canvassing of ballots are. You've posted about it on your Facebook page. Pre-canvassing is when we start counting the votes the day of election. Currently, and you didn't answer the question either because they asked if you would sponsor or be against a bill. I would sponsor a bill to allow more pre-canvassing. Currently, Act 77 gives the right for mail ballots. The Board of Elections could start when the polls are open to open the envelopes, but not the actual ballot, and you cannot count the ballots currently. That's pre-canvassing. That's the way it is today. What happened was, and it happened in our election, we did not have final votes in the primary. We did not know exactly who won. There was projections. The reason that they weren't done was they could only open the ballots and they could only get them so far. Pre-canvassing and my sponsored bill, and I will sponsor the bill because I believe in voting, allows for the county elections at 7:01 to start not only opening and prepping, but actual scanning or counting the votes. And this way here, the integrity of our elections will be more palatable to the electorate because they will know sooner, and probably by starting at 7:01 to process votes and count votes, we will know by the end of the night at a reasonable hour who won. And that's pre-canvassing, and I strongly support it.
Thank you. The next question deals with primaries. Mr. Haddock, you'll answer first. Currently, Pennsylvania is one of the handful of states that still hold closed primaries, leaving a large proportion of registered voters unable to participate in primary elections that determine what candidates will be on general election ballots. Would you sponsor, co-sponsor, or vote for an open primary law?
I said in my opening statement, one of my top 3 were voting rights. And yes, I would sponsor or co-sponsor a bill that would allow independents and other third-party registrations, and thank you, many of the states, most states allow this. We're one of the few. And that adds confusion to people from Pennsylvania. Maybe they don't follow politics as heavy or the voting process of other communities or other states. Our state has very rigid, old-fashioned. You register in this party, you vote in this party in the spring only. We can open that up and we could allow independents, and there's several different states that do it several different ways. So this would be an interesting conversation as a legislature member to go in and come up with the right bill to allow people to vote in a primary. And people should vote, I said that. This is America, and that's what makes America great, the right that we have to vote.
Thank you. Mr. May, same question.
No, I wouldn't. And I know that's probably not the politically correct answer to say when we're trying to reach independent and third-party voters, but if you're here or you're watching and you are an independent or third-party voter, just know that I will always be honest with you, even if we might disagree on this. And here's why I say that. I think there's two problems with it. First of all, by allowing people to move in and out of whatever party they're in, or third party or independents to come in and vote in a primary election, it muddies the water and opens it up for people to come in and to begin voting for a candidate that they want to run against. So if you're a Democrat, you could come in and say, well, we're going to all go over and vote for a very weak Democrat in order to bring the weakest candidate to the forefront. But the purpose of a primary is all of the parties get together and they want to choose who represents them. And so, you know, if I'm not a member of the local fire company and they want to choose who's going to be the president of the fire company, or if I'm not a member of the American Legion, or if I'm not a member of your church, I'm not going to walk into your church or your Legion or any of those organizations and say, hey, I'm not a member, but I would like to have input on who the person representing you is going to be. So, no, I think there's a lot of other areas that we can reform, but I think the whole idea of a primary is essentially each party gets together and they say this is who we want to represent us, and that's the way we go. Now, let me say too, where I would make a major change, and hopefully if you're independent or third party, you'll hear this, I think we need to make ballot access much easier for independent and third party candidates. And I think that's an area that we could certainly work on, but I wouldn't open up the ballot process and the primary process.
Thank you. The next question will deal with abortion. Mr. May, this question will go to you first. If the Pennsylvania Constitution is amended to say, quote, this Constitution does not grant any right relating to abortion, end quote, it would be up to the state legislature and the governor to determine if state legislation would protect, limit, or terminate a woman's right to end her pregnancy. Please explain what state legislation regarding a woman's right to end a pregnancy you would support or oppose with your vote as a legislator.
So I was telling somebody the other day that I went to a restaurant recently and I saw on the menu haddock and fries. And I said, this campaign here, what we have seen on the menu throughout this topic specifically, has been haddock and lies. The amount of disinformation that has come out on this campaign on this topic specifically has been a complete disservice to the voters on either side of the issue, whether you're pro-life or pro-choice. The amount of lies and disinformation that has been said on this topic is a complete disservice to the voters of this district. There are ads out right now from Jim's campaign, from people who support him, claiming all sorts of things, suggesting that I want to somehow ban birth control. Like, I'm going to shut down every CVS in the area and lock up every gas station bathroom. I mean, it's getting ridiculous. They're trying to say that I want to take away medicine. They use this term, government regulation of pregnancy, whatever in the world that means. Some supporters of Jim's, it was a dark money group out of Philadelphia, the League of Women Voters and the University of Scranton called them out and demanded that they take down an ad because they took 5 words out of context and started pairing it up next to all of this other stuff, trying to act as if I was supporting certain things. And Jim has said that that was not him, and I understand that, but Jim, where I have the problem is you specifically told Bill O'Boyle with the Times Leader, and I'll quote, James May doesn't support exceptions in cases of rape, incest, or when the mother's life is at risk. May also would criminalize a woman and her doctor. That is factually incorrect, okay? I don't know where you got that. I don't know if you just made assumptions based upon not talking to me. I don't know if you just told the reporter what he wanted to hear, but I'm telling you, your statement to Bill O'Boyle, which is now out there, is not true. So I would like to know where you got that. So I do support exceptions for rape and the life of the mother. I do not want to criminalize the doctor or nurses, but I don't know where on earth Jim is getting this information that he's telling reporters.
Okay. Mr. Haddock, same question to you. You're also welcome to respond.
Well, I would not support, the question was from the League of Women Voters in this debate about abortion and a constitutional amendment. I am not for a constitutional amendment that would ban abortions. Just not for it. I stand for women's rights. And in Harrisburg, I will always support a woman's right to choose. I've said it before. This issue is an attack on people's rights. And for 50 years, women have had that right, and it's been rolled back. And Mr. May, you mentioned about your comment, and again today now you said you could support it, an exception for, you missed the word.
Rape, incest, and the life of the mother.
No, you said you skipped over incest, and you have skipped over incest in the past. And there's a Senate bill from Doug Mastriano that would basically ban abortion, and he's your running mate, and you supported Doug Mastriano in the spring, very heavy, and now you're running away from him. So you have been on record to be against women and women's rights.
I'll take my rebuttal on this. First of all, I will tell you I voted for Lou Barletta. I'm friends with many of the candidates who ran, so that's neither here nor there. News alert, Doug Mastriano is not running for the Pennsylvania State House of Representatives. Second, the issue with incest is the vast majority of the time, if we're talking about incest, we're talking about rape. And that's why I many times won't list that one separate, because typically what we're talking about, I mean, let's be honest, we're not talking about two cousins who get together and say, hey, let's go shack up together. We're talking typically incest is also rape. And so just to be clear, I support the exception for, I absolutely support an exception for the life of the mother, for rape, and for incest, and I don't want to criminalize doctors or women who have abortions. And the problem is, Jim, that you told Bill O'Boyle, this was your quote that you said, and it's just not true. So I don't understand how you're telling a reporter what my views are. I'm not Doug Mastriano. These are my views. And you're telling reporters things that are just factually, blatantly incorrect.
Okay. We'll move on to the next question. Next question deals with regional greenhouse gas initiative support. Pennsylvania is the fourth largest carbon dioxide emitter in the country. The Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, RGGI, supports reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. Do you believe the Pennsylvania state government, either via legislation or executive action, should join the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative? This question will first go to Mr. Haddock.
Yes, I would. We have to move away from carbon footprints that are ruining our environment and causing global warming. The Greenhouse Gas Initiative is a step in the right direction. However, I know that Marcellus Shale and Utica Shale in the natural gas industry is here in Pennsylvania. It's a very rich asset, and it's something we can continue to use as long as we take the proper precautions to make sure that it's done safely with minimum impact to our environment. And those regulations should be placed on that industry and the coal industry, because nuclear power plants or power plants that are fired by coal are very bad for the environment. Transitioning them to gas is less harmful to our environment, and we must be good shepherds of our environment to pass it on to our children and our grandchildren. And we must also look simultaneously for wind and solar energy development. But gas industry should be supported, and we should continue to work with them to develop that. It may cost them a couple more cents to get per BTU to produce it, but this state is so rich with gas and shale that that industry will not pull out of this state. And they've already invested hundreds of millions of dollars into infrastructure. So they will comply with us and protect the environment when I'm state legislator.
Thank you. Mr. May?
They won't pull out of the state, but they'll pass those increases on to every single person. And folks, I'll tell you what, if you think that prices are high now, wait until this winter comes and you have to start paying your home heating costs, because those are going to go through the roof. No, I absolutely oppose RGGI, the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. Every one of us in here, I'm sure, wants to make sure that we take care of our environment. And we need to make sure that we're doing whatever we can do to protect our environment. But we can do so in a way in which we're not bowing down to the extremists of the environmental wing of Jim's party here. And this is what's driving up the cost right now. We saw out in California where they have this push to ban gas vehicles. And what happened the next week? They make an announcement, hey, don't turn on your electricity right now because we don't have enough in the power grid. What RGGI does is it puts it's a carbon tax, and it's a tax, and Jim said that it only goes up a little bit, but those costs are passed on to us. We need to take care of our environment, and the problem with RGGI is that Pennsylvania is such a powerhouse of production of gas and coal and oil. We're number 2 or number 3 in all of those. We have more natural gas under our feet right now than Saudi Arabia. And so when we look and we begin taxing this, like Jim is proposing, first of all, that tax is passed on to the consumer, and yes, they will get to the point where they will pull out. I mean, don't think that they're not. And this becomes not just an issue for bringing down gas prices, but the more that we can have natural gas and more fuel digging right here in northeastern Pennsylvania, that is good for our national security. And we see what happens right now when we're too dependent upon foreign sources for our oil. So I would support completely getting out of the Regional Green Gas Initiative because I think it's bad for Pennsylvania and it's bad for consumers.
Thank you. The next question deals with housing. Mr. May, you'll answer this question first. Pennsylvania's housing stock is among the oldest in the nation. As many homes advance in age and fall into disrepair, what tools can the General Assembly provide to local governments to combat blight and enable land banks to preserve blighted properties and bring them into productive use?
Actually, this is one area that I think that Jim and I have a little bit of overlap here. I know he does real estate. I do real estate. I don't think I do it quite as much as what you do, but I do have my real estate license and actually have a closing tomorrow morning that I have to go to. And so what we're seeing right now is that families are being driven out of their homes because prices are going, again, through the roof. And there's this cycle that begins to take place that, once again, right now, because we're seeing inflation taking place and then the Fed comes along and they want to try to reduce inflation. So what they do is they raise interest rates, and that's why your credit card mortgage is going to go up. That's why the interest on your car loan is going to go up. That's why the interest on your mortgage is going to go up. And so we're in this downward spiral right now. And the reason that we're in this downward spiral is because our government is spending too much money. Economists define inflation as too much money chasing too few goods. And that is what's driving inflation. And because we have inflation, that's what's driving mortgage rates to go up, which is taking these families out of their homes. That's what's driving them to have less disposable income. And that's the underlying cause of what's causing the housing issue that we're facing right now. I do think that the state can come along and can partner with some local municipalities and stuff like this. I met with Mayor Mike Lombardo a couple weeks ago, and he and I were talking about some of the things that they're doing down there where the state can come along. I would rather have the state partner with local municipalities to do some of these type of things, and rather have the state, the more that can be done at the local level, but I think the state can partner with the local municipalities in making some of these things happen in a much better way than having the state or the federal government try to control those.
Mr. Haddock, same question.
Question was about aging housing stock. And that doesn't happen overnight. And yes, we are in an inflationary period. and the government is trying to get it under control. But the inflation that we're feeling, and we're all feeling it in Pennsylvania, we're feeling it throughout this country and around the world. It's global inflation as we're moving out of the pandemic. But that just started after, inflation just started after the pandemic, and not immediately after. It took a year when the economy got hot. The housing market was through the roof, and that's where we're at today. But the question was, old houses, aging houses, what can the government do? Aging houses didn't happen since COVID. It's been going on well before COVID to get them old and to get them in disrepair. So I said earlier, if the state of Pennsylvania would fund education properly, then we could look for means to lower property taxes. And that is how you help get people the extra money to put back in their house. Our state has a housing unit rebate, rent for homeowners, for seniors. I propose raising that cap on the income that has been there for over 20 years from $35,000 to $50,000 in income for our senior citizens, and then that up to $650 rebate can be put back into their budget to do repairs to their homes.
Next question deals with the regulation of firearms. Mr. Haddock, you will answer first. What efforts or legislative reforms do you support, if any, that would increase regulation of firearms? Please explain your answer.
Sure. I'm an avid hunter. I'm president of my hunt club. And as such, I strongly support the Constitution of the state of Pennsylvania that grants the right to bear arms, along with the Second Amendment of our country. I understand the issue of gun violence and gun safety. What we can do is take common sense approaches and pass legislation that would help curb gun violence. Currently, Pennsylvania does have a registration. When you purchase a gun, you must register the gun in particular, and then later on, handguns must be continued to be registered as you transfer the registration. I will keep that law in place. That helps curb gun violence. We also have a red flag law existing already in the state of Pennsylvania for PFAs, protection from abuse orders. The judge in the state of Pennsylvania has the right to red flag if that judge feels that there is a danger with that person and their guns, to take those guns into safekeeping during that period when the PFA is active. So we could look at keeping the current laws in place that are working and then looking to expand some kinds of common sense gun laws that were easy to pass, but would not infringe on the right to own and bear arms. And I am definitely against people with a felony to have guns. I am against people with mental health issues to have guns.
Thank you. Mr. May, same question.
So I think we need to ask ourselves the question as to whether or not we want to try to do something that makes us feel good or do something that actually solves problems. And the problem that I have with so many of these restrictions that are being put in place is that unless you can guarantee me that the drug dealer, the gang member, or the leader of organized crime is not going to be able to get the gun that you're keeping me from getting, then really all you're doing is taking away guns from law-abiding citizens and allowing the criminals to have those guns. My wife and I do a lot of mission work in Honduras. San Pedro, Honduras is the murder capital of the world, and it is that way because all the bad guys have the guns and the good people don't. And so when we begin restricting any type of guns, what typically ends up happening is you're restricting them from the law-abiding people who will turn those in. The other thing we need to understand today is that a kid with a 3D printer in his parents' basement can literally print these guns. There was just a story on this a couple weeks ago about one of these cities had a gun buyback program, and some 20-year-old kid went in his basement and started literally printing off 3D. You can 3D print a gun these days, and began 3D printing these guns and was taking them down and turning them in for a gun buyback. And so we look at these restrictions that are being put in place, and the problem with many of those is that all they do is take guns away from law-abiding citizens, and the bad guys end up with the guns, and as such, you've not only not solved anything, what you've actually done is made the problem worse.
Okay. The next question has to do with legislative salary. So Mr. May will answer this first. Assuming at least an 8.8% increase based on the Consumer Price Index in August 2021, state legislative salaries will increase to $103,732 as of January 2022. The state minimum wage is $7.25 and has not increased since 2009. Can you justify indexing the salaries of legislators and top state officials while leaving the state minimum wage at $7.25 an hour?
First of all, let me say I'm a little bit frustrated here because I told my kids that my salary would only be about $50,000 because I don't want them bugging me for money. So now if they watch this video, they're going to know how much the new state rep goes. No, that's insanely way too much money. I mean, I guess what I would say is the only thing that we can do at this point, because neither Jim nor I were there to vote for that, neither Jim nor I were there to vote for the automatic cost of living increase that they give themselves every year, and neither one. I mean, we're both just walking into this, and we take the salary that is given to them. But I guess what I would say is that it becomes our responsibility to make sure that whatever salary that we are getting, that we are doing everything that we can to earn that salary. So no, I absolutely, I think that that's too much. Now, one of the other ideas that I had, and it ties in with this, is in addition to this astronomical salary that they're getting, they're also getting the per diems. And the per diems are set up in such a way that you can either take actual costs, or you can, the state representatives can just take the full amount, this is like $200 and something a day, in addition to that they also get. One of the ideas that I have had is, everybody said, you know, obviously don't take the full per diem, that's the whole thing these days. I've thought, why couldn't a state rep take that full per diem and hand it over to the local fire company? Hand it over to local charitable organizations. Now, you'd have to keep good receipts so that nobody's questioning that you're actually taking and pocketing the money. But one of the ideas that I have had is, let's take that and get that money back into the local community back here. That would be a good way to do that. But the salary that they give them right now, I think is more than adequate. And my job as a state representative is going to be to make sure that whatever we do down there, that we earn the salary that we have.
Mr. Haddock, same question.
Wow. What an answer, Jim.
Thank you.
Several years ago, our legislature gave a midnight pass to themselves, very late, and they gave themselves a whopping raise. That led to an outcry, and a couple of them got voted out. So then they passed a COLA. And the question was, I should answer the question, because you said, how do we justify the current salary of a state legislature at $103,000 it's going to, and keep minimum wage at 7.25, 7.25 an hour? Jim didn't answer it, because he's not for increasing the minimum wage. He's on record saying that. I will support an increase to the minimum wage to get it to $15 an hour over a stepped period. Now, I started to tell you about our legislature. So they passed an automatic, after they got in trouble giving themselves a whopping raise, they passed an automatic raise, a COLA. And the COLA seemed to work well. And this year inflation hit, and it hit to 8%. I didn't know when I was running how much state rep got paid. So I was shocked when I actually heard. I thought it was something about $85,000, and here it was 90 some, and now it's going to 100,000. Jimmy, you're talking about taking per diems and passing it around. That's taxpayer money. I will not take per diems, and I will vote. I originally thought about this, about capping the COLA. Now, Jim Haddock, as your state representative, will do a bill to stop the COLA and make legislatures, if they want to raise, let's vote on it in Harrisburg and hold them accountable like they did the last time. And if you don't like the raise they gave themselves, throw them out.
Okay. Next question. Mr. Haddock, you will answer this question first. Is accepting gifts of value from people living inside or outside of the state a conflict of interest for state legislators? Please explain your answer.
Well, I think the gifts, and because there's no reporting, is a conflict, and I think it should be, and sometimes we don't give. They should be illegal. Let's pass a bill. I will sponsor that legislation to ban gifts and fully disclose what you do receive. Now, a lot of times our legislature members do go out and they go to a baseball game or they support a certain team, and they might get a gift of a baseball hat. Or somebody may come in with a tray of cookies and go to give it to the office. Very nominal. So in my gift ban plan, I would like to put a cap. Anything over $100 in value is banned, because it is a conflict of interest. And as we talked about earlier, it is a very good salary to be your state representative. So I would vote to ban gifts with a nominal gift, and you can make it, we could even put it into that should be reported. Because again, if there's some sport team gives you a football, if you were good to that sport team and got them a grant or worked with them or volunteered with them, and they present you a football, that's a nominal gift. That's just a gift of appreciation. So a nominal gift, make an exception in the gift, $100 or less, it's acceptable, but report it.
Mr. May?
I think we need to do whatever we can to make sure that we are encouraging honesty and integrity within our elected officials. And rules and regulations are good, but if we have people who have a record of nepotism, who have a record of violating policies that are in place already, no matter what rules we have, people will find out ways to work around those rules. Let me give you one example. A number of years ago, there was a job opening at the Pittston Area School District. The position had, and I'll post this on my Facebook, you can read about it. The position had not been advertised, and as a result, they received one and only one application. It was the school director's daughter. When they voted on that, Jim was one of 3 school board members who voted to try to hire the school director's daughter. Now, thankfully, the school board had enough sense to vote that down, but Jim voted in favor of that. The Sunday Dispatch said about Jim's vote, and I quote, "It was a blatant violation of nepotism standards. It was better for everyone that such a situation was avoided." Some of you might know Dave Yonkai. He's a political analyst for WBRE, WYOU-TV. He's a Democrat, actually a pretty liberal Democrat, but he's a good guy. He stands for good government type of things, but he's the political analyst for WBRE, WYOU-TV. He said, quote, "The appointment of Jim Haddock as a manager, even though he had no qualifications for the job, smacks of old-time politics." So we can have rules in place all that we want. We can come up with all sorts of rules, and I will support anything that we can put in place to strengthen those rules and to ban gifts, and I would support this legislation. But if we have people who are involved already and have a record of engaging in what was called blatant nepotism and engaging in old-time politics, then we're going to have the same old again and again.
Rabaz?
I'd like to use my rebuttal.
Go ahead.
It was a personal attack. Nepotism is when you take care of your family. I believe that job in Pittston area was advertised, and it was a person that was a nurse, and that nurse took care of my mother. I saw firsthand the compassion of that nurse and what she did for my mother when she was in the hospital. And her father was on the school board. Her father begged her not to apply because it would have been bad on him. So yes, I did vote for that lady. It's not my relation, that's not nepotism. My Luzerne County job was posted in the paper. It went to blind resumes. There was a ranking process, and there was several people. I was interviewed, and I was hired. That is not a political job. It is funded with taxpayer dollars, but I got it through a newspaper ad that I applied for because I was the most qualified person for that job, and 10 years later, I'm still in that same job.
At this point, I would like to invite the candidates to give their closing statements. Based on a drawing, Mr. May will go first.
And I guess I'll start off on a rebuttal on that. So those are not my words. I mean, I'm not the one making those accusations. That's what Dave Yonkai and the Sunday Dispatch, that was their words, and they're the ones who classified it as that. I want to use my closing statement here actually to speak to Democrats, independents, and third-party candidates who are here. So if you're a Republican, you can take out your phone and play Candy Crush for a little bit if you want to. I want to just speak specifically to those of you who are either here or watching at home who are Democrats, independents, or third-party candidates. And I want to ask you a very simple question. How's it going? Very simply, when you leave your house in the morning and you go out onto the road, we didn't even talk about roads and bridges, and you drive down the road in front of your house and you see the condition of the roads, when you pull into the gas station and you see gas beginning to climb over $4 a gallon, when you see the increase in the home heating oil or your home heating fuel, the cost going up this winter, when you get to the grocery store and you see the price of what it cost you to fill up a couple bags of groceries, my question is, how's it going? When you get your property tax bill and you see the corruption and the nepotism that has been taking place in northeastern Pennsylvania, and you see this group of individuals who are these political insiders who continue to take care of themselves, take care of their friends, take care of their friends' nurses and everybody else, and you see what's taking place here in northeastern Pennsylvania, I would simply ask you, how's it going? If you answer that question and you say it's going great, my guess is either you're a political insider, or if that's your view, then I would say to vote for the guy who has been in politics since Miss Judy was on Hatchie Malachi. He has been in politics that long. When you think of a political insider, Jim has been doing politics since I was in high school. If your goal, however, is to fix our roads, help our veterans, bring down the price of gas and groceries, and if you think that we can do better than what we have been doing, I would ask for your consideration and ask for your vote on November 2nd. Thank you.
Mr. Haddock, go ahead.
I would like to thank the League of Women Voters and the Center for Ethics and Excellence in Public Service for sponsoring this debate tonight. I'd also like to thank Dr. Jean Harris for her fine work in organizing it. To Joanna, our moderator, thank you. This was a good public service. And I hope the voters of the 118th today saw a difference in the candidates with the questions that were asked and the answers that were given. I am the only candidate in this election that actually has governmental experience. I have been a mayor, I have been a school director, and I worked in Luzerne County government. And as mayor, I worked for many of the things that were brought out today: public safety, police protections. I also am the candidate in this election that has 20-plus years in the financial industry, working in many local banks in Luzerne and Lackawanna County. I also have worked in the insurance industry for 9 years, and I'm currently in Luzerne County government for 10 years. I bring a wealth of experience to the table, and I will put that wealth to work for you as your state representative in Harrisburg. I will take that fighting spirit to properly fund public education and then look to cut property tax. I will support public safety. I will support our state police and our local police and emergency responders. I will protect the rights of the people of Pennsylvania, the woman's right to choose, the right to collective bargain, and the right for all Pennsylvania to have clean air and water. I'd also like to thank everyone here tonight, and I would encourage everybody to go vote for the candidate of your choice on November the 8th. Thank you.
We thank both of the candidates for giving of their time to engage with voters. A few important deadlines. Remember, the last day to register to vote in the November 8th election is October 24th. The last date to apply for a mail-in ballot is November 1st. The deadline to return your voted absentee or mail-in ballot is 8 p.m. on November 8th. Voting in person at your assigned polling place occurs on November 8th between 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. Thank you for watching this program, co-sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Lackawanna County and the University of Scranton Center for Ethics and Excellence in Public Service. Have a great evening. Thank you.